The 2014 United States Senate election in Tennessee took place on November 4, 2014, to elect a member of the United States Senate for the state of Tennessee. Incumbent Republican Senator Lamar Alexander was re-elected to a third term in office. Background: Alexander was re-elected with 65% of the vote in 2008. Alexander stepped down from his leadership role as Republican Conference Chairman of the United States Senate in 2011, but announced that he would seek re-election to a third term. Republican primary: although Alexander was initially thought to be vulnerable to a primary challenge from the right, he worked to avoid this and ultimately did not face a high-profile challenger. He declared his intention to run early, quickly won the endorsement of Governor Bill Haslam, every living former Tennessee Republican Party chairman and the state's entire Republican congressional delegation. He also raised a large amount of money and worked to avoid the mistakes of ousted Senators Bob Bennett and Richard Lugar by trying to stay in touch with his constituents, especially in East Tennessee. Moreover, out-of-state conservative organizations such as the Senate Conservatives Fund made little effort to defeat Alexander. During his re-election campaign in 2008, Alexander faced no opponents in the Republican primary. As early as July 2013, it was obvious that the same would not be true in 2014. The weekend of July 20, 2013, a rally was held in Smyrna in opposition to Alexander. Activists attending the event included Williamson County GOP leader Kevin Kokogi. By mid-August, Triton Polling released a poll showing Alexander trailing a generic conservative by 5 points. But no generic conservative seemed to want to step up. In search of a candidate, a Beat Lamar PAC held a forum and invited Kokogi, Knox County Mayor Tim Burchett, and Alexander's only formal opponent at the time, Brenda Laynard of Knoxville. On August 20, 2013, State Representative Joe Carr announced his candidacy. He had previously been opposing Scott Disjolay in the race for Tennessee's 4th Congressional District, but swapped races under public pressure. Kokogi soon dropped out of the race. 4 candidates were then vetted in September by the Coalition for a Constitutional Senate: Carr, truck driver Jerry Davis, business owner John McDaniel, and electrician Danny Page. The coalition ultimately endorsed Carr with 59% of the vote, but some felt that Carr's nomination was coerced by the leaders of the Beat Lamar PAC. Independent candidate Danny Page was especially vocal on that issue. Entering the race late was George Flynn, a radiologist from Memphis who had run for Congress against Steve Cohen in 2012. There was some speculation that Flynn was a spoiler deployed by Alexander to steal Tea Party votes from Carr. In the primary's final stretch, Carr was endorsed by Sarah Palin, but he did not receive much other support from outside of Tennessee, failing to receive endorsements from the Senate Conservatives Fund or the Club for Growth. Ultimately, Alexander won the primary, though he recorded the lowest winning percentage and lowest margin of victory ever in a primary for a Republican U.S. Senator from Tennessee. Carr won a larger percentage of the vote than the previous 11 challengers to sitting Republican U.S. Senators in Tennessee history combined. Candidates equals. Declared: Christian Agnew, Lamar Alexander, Incumbent U.S. Senator, Joe Carr, State Representative, George Flynn, radiologist, radio station owner, former Shelby County Commissioner and nominee for Tennessee's 9th Congressional District in 2012, John King, businessman, Brenda Laynard, doctoral student at the University of Tennessee and candidate for the U.S. Senate in 2012, Erin Kent McGee. Withdrew: Danny Page, electrician. Declined: Diane Black, U.S. Representative, Marsha Blackburn, U.S. Representative, Tim Burchett, Mayor of Knox County, Stacey Camfield, State Senator, Jimmy Duncan, U.S. Representative, Stephen Fincher, U.S. Representative, Chuck Fleischman, U.S. Representative, Mark Green, State Senator, Glenn Jacobs, professional wrestler, Kevin Kokogi, former chairman of the Williamson County Republican Party, Monty Langford, businessman, board member of the Tennessee Family Action Council and nominee for Tennessee's 4th Congressional District in 2008, Ron Ramsey, Lieutenant Governor and Speaker of the Tennessee Senate, Phil Rowe, U.S. Representative. Endorsements polling internal poll for Lamar Alexander campaign, internal poll for Terry Adams campaign. Results Democratic primary declared Terry Adams, attorney, Gordon Ball, attorney, Larry Krim, CEO of Christian Counseling Centers of America, Incorporated. Gary Gene Davis, perennial candidate. Withdrew Jacob Mora, high school educator and write-in candidate for the U.S. Senate in 2012. Declined Phil Bridson, former governor of Tennessee, Joe Brown, arbiter of the CBS television series Judge Joe Brown, and former Shelby County Criminal Court Judge, Craig Fitzhugh, minority leader of the Tennessee House of Representatives, Roy Herron, chairman of the Tennessee Democratic Party, former state senator and nominee for Tennessee's 8th congressional district in 2010. Endorsements in an odd move reminiscent of the 2012 U.S. Senate race, Tennessee Democratic Party Chair Roy Herron in the 2014 U.S. Senate race recruited and endorsed Terry Adams before the qualifying deadline, but Adams lost the primary. The qualified candidate touring the state at the time of the move by Herron was Larry Krim for U.S. Senate, while Gordon Ball of Knoxville was publicly considering an entry to the race. Ultimately, all three Democratic candidates, Larry Krim, Terry Adams and Gordon Ball, were on the Democratic ballot and received the following endorsements from Democratic leaders. Larry Krim U.S. Senate endorsements public figures and organizations, State Senator Reginald Tate, Memphis, Shelby County Senator of Memphis, State Representative Barbara Cooper, State Rep of Memphis-Shelby County, Councilman Doug Perdue, Metro Nashville Councilman of Davidson County, Councilman Tony Tenpenny, Metro Nashville Councilman of Davidson County, Councilman Scott Davis, Metro Nashville Councilman of Davidson County, Democrats United for Tennessee, statewide political organization making a connection in a Tennessee direction, Democrats for Equal Educational Opportunity, Centrist Democratic Leadership Council. Results U.S. Senate primary voting irregularities reported in the 2014 election cycle. The Secretary of State Elections Division and county election officials received complaints from campaigns and voters for Joe Carr for U.S. Senate, Larry Krim for U.S. Senate and Jim Tracy for U.S. House to the effect that primary ballots were not visible to voters on voting machine screens in numerous critical voting jurisdictions, including Rutherford County, TN, which Carr for U.S. Senate represented as State House member. Larry Krim for U.S. Senate achieved support from elected public officials, Rutherford County Democratic Committee members, and conducted focused grassroots outreach, and which Jim Tracy for U.S. House District 4 represented as State Senator. Memphis was another jurisdiction where primary ballot screens on voting machines were reported as inoperative or not visible to voters. In Memphis, Carr for U.S. Senate ran a Shelby County conservative effort. Larry Krim for U.S. Senate ran with core support among ranking members of the Black Caucus of Memphis legislators and grassroots campaigning among inner-city voters. Ricky Wilkins for U.S. House also ran in the Memphis area with similar inner-city outreach against incumbent U.S. House member Steve Cohen. Memphis, re-elected. Election irregularities, previously reported in the 2012 federal primary in Memphis, repeated in the 2014 federal primary early voting periods, were followed by the Federal Department of Justice assigning federal monitors to Memphis on the actual primary election day 2014. Though the 2014 federal U.S. Senate primary candidates in Tennessee, including Larry Krim for U.S. Senate and Joe Carr for U.S. Senate, along with U.S. House primary candidates Ricky Wilkins for U.S. House Memphis and Jim Tracy for U.S. House, 43% of whose U.S. District 4 was in Rutherford County, who briefly considered an election challenge, could have filed an election contest challenging the disparate impact on their primary elections in these focal points of their electioneering efforts in key counties. None ultimately chose to challenge the outcome. General election candidates Lamar Alexander, incumbent U.S. Senator, Gordon Ball, attorney, Tom Emerson, Jr., Edmund Gautier, Joshua James, Danny Page, electrician, Bartholomew Phillips, Martin Pleasant C. Salekin, Eric Schechter, Rick Tyler, Joe Wilmoth, candidate for the state Senate in 2010. Endorsements debates in total, 7 debates and candidate forums were held during the campaign. The first was conducted by Democrats United for Tennessee Incorporated in Nashville at United Steelworkers Convention Center on December 10, 2013, attended by Democrat Larry Crim for U.S. Senate, who was the first declared candidate, announcing in February 2013. The second was held in Chattanooga March 6, 2014 at a Labor Unity Forum dinner for local, state and federal candidates hosted by Democrats United for Tennessee, at which Larry Crim for U.S. Senate was the sole federal candidate for United States Senate to appear among the 15 candidates for other offices at the Labor and Candidate Forum. The third was held in Bolivar, Tennessee, and attended by Democrats Gordon Ball and Adams, Republican George Flynn, and Independents Ed Gautier and Danny Page. The attendees criticized Alexander and Carr for not attending. The fourth was a candidates forum after the primary in Cookeville on October 16. Only Republican nominee Lamar Alexander and Democrat nominee Gordon Ball were allowed to participate. The fifth debate was on October 23 at a Sheraton Hotel across from the Tennessee State Capitol in Nashville. The nominees for the Democratic Party, Libertarian Party, Green Party, and Constitution Party were all in attendance, as well as independents Tom Emerson, Ed Gautier, and Danny Page. The moderator was blogger Tom Humphrey of the blog Humphrey on the Hill. The candidates discussed a number of issues, including abortion, the Islamic State, Common Core education standards, and global warming, but the issue that stuck most with the media was marijuana. There was a general consensus among the 7 candidates in attendance that the federal government should not be involved in the issue, and that authority on marijuana should be reserved to the states and people. Incumbent Senator Lamar Alexander declined to participate in the debate, and was mocked by Democrat Gordon Ball as being chicken. Alexander was speaking in front of various groups in Nashville and Murfreesboro that day. The 6th and 7th debates were held in Johnson City and Crossville, and featured candidates Gordon Ball and Danny Page. Senator Alexander was invited, but attended neither. Campaign in September, an education summit was held in Nashville by Governor Bill Haslam. A protest of the summit was attended by Democrat Gordon Ball and Independent Danny Page. In late September, 11 members of the Tennessee General Assembly who had backed Joe Carr in the primaries announced they would back Alexander in the general election, saying, "We feel that it is vitally important to the country that we stand together and support replacing the liberal agenda that is now in control of the United States Senate." Carr himself abstained from the endorsement. Polling results See also, United States Senate elections, 2014, United States elections, 2014. References. External links, U.S. Senate elections in Tennessee, 2014 at Ballotpedia, campaign contributions at opensecrets.org, official campaign websites, Terry Adams for U.S. Senate, Lamar Alexander for U.S. Senate, Gordon Ball for U.S. Senate, Joe Carr for U.S. Senate, Larry Crim for U.S. Senate, Brenda Leonard for U.S. Senate, Danny Page for U.S. Senate, E. L. Gautier for U.S. Senate,